The kitchen had 2 counters, yet Nina insisted on taking over the one Annie was using. At that moment, Annie was finishing a fish dish, the aroma rich and savory, when Nina stepped in, smiling sweetly. "Why don't you take a break?" she said, already pushing her aside. Startled, Annie stumbled back, nearly dropping her spatula. The sizzling oil splashed, burning her wrist, while the skin of the fish crisped too much and began to char. For most of the night, I had kept my composure. But this time, Nina had crossed a line. She'd ruined the one dish I'd actually been looking forward to. Not long after, amid the lively chatter of relatives, Nina emerged proudly from the kitchen, carrying a bowl of noodles topped with marinated chili chicken feet. Madame Tan's eyes brightened immediately. She took one bite and beamed. "This is delicious. All those fancy dishes pale in comparison to Nina's handmade noodles." I glanced toward Annie. She sat silently, her thin shoulders trembling. Her small hands were clasped together tightly in her lap, her face hidden behind a fragile smile. Even someone as composed as me felt a twist of anger. How long had she been standing over that stove? She'd worked since dawn, sweating over every dish, yet in the end, all her effort was dismissed with a single, careless compliment. Madame Tan devoured half the bowl, exclaiming between bites, "Nina, this is so good. Truly, home-cooked meals have the best flavor." I could hardly stand it any longer. "Mother," I said softly, "shouldn't you at least try the other dishes, too?" Nina gave a gentle laugh, her tone syrupy and sharp at once. "Oh, Auntie just loves my cooking," she said. "Annie's food always tastes the same anyway. It doesn't matter which day you eat it." Then she tilted her head, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Right, Auntie? This is a gift from your niece's heart. I cooked it all myself, not like some people who order takeout and pretend they made it." The words were soft, but everyone heard the venom beneath them. Annie's head snapped up. Her voice trembled, but she tried to defend herself. "I didn't order anything. Every dish was planned and prepared by me, down to the last ingredient." Her words fell into a void of silence. The relatives glanced at each other, their faces full of fake concern. I watched quietly. Around that dinner table, everyone wore masks, polite smiles covering cold indifference. How pathetic. The girl who'd worked the hardest was the one most humiliated, and the one who'd caused chaos was being praised as the family's jewel. I exhaled slowly. Enough. I turned toward Nina, my voice calm but cutting. "Cousin, you said Annie's dishes all taste the same. I think you're mistaken." She blinked, a little thrown off. "Oh? What do you mean by that?" "You see," I said, smiling slightly, "Annie's cooking has the flavor of a daughter's devotion. Yours, on the other hand, has the flavor of a niece's ambition." Nina froze, caught off guard. The air at the table thickened instantly. I leaned back casually. "Parents should always taste their child's cooking first," I added. "I've never heard of a family where the niece's dish takes priority over the daughter's." My tone was light, but the meaning was a blade. The room fell utterly silent. Even Annie looked at me in shock. Across the table, Nina's face turned ghostly pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. For years, she'd been surrounded by people too timid to challenge her. She didn't know how to react when someone actually fought back. I rested my chin on my hand and spoke as if making idle conversation. "Maybe you'll say I'm being sensitive," I said softly. "But wherever I've been in the Trin family or among friends' parents, always take the first bite of their own child's food. That's just natural." The words landed like stones dropped into water. Mr. and Mrs. Tan's smiles froze. Their faces went pale, then flushed red. The facade of grace cracked under the weight of truth. Aunt Susan quickly tried to intervene. Now, it's just a misunderstanding." I cut her off smoothly. "Oh, don't worry. I only wanted to point something out." I turned my gaze toward her, smiling pleasantly. "Longevity noodles are traditionally cooked by a daughter for her parents' birthdays, aren't they?" Aunt Susan stiffened. "I didn't mean anything by it," I continued. "It's just, if everyone's supposed to cook noodles for their parents on their birthdays, then I wonder when it's your birthday, Auntie, who will make yours." The table went dead silent. Aunt Susan's smile faltered. Her expression twisted, her polite mask cracking. Well, she said coldly, you certainly have a sharp tongue. I smiled faintly. Sharp? Oh no, Auntie. The sharp part hasn't even begun. Then I turned back to the others, my expression cooling. As for whether Annie ordered takeout, I said evenly, that's easy to verify. There are cameras in the kitchen, aren't there? Everyone saw how hard she worked. If we check the footage, we'll see who's telling the truth. Gasps rippled through the room. And Nina, I continued, my voice dropping just slightly. You accused her based on what exactly? A single food container you saw in the trash. Her lips trembled. I didn't mean... Oh, come on, I interrupted smoothly. Don't tell me you were just being careless. You saw a container and assumed the worst. That's not thoughtlessness, that's cruelty. The relatives shifted uncomfortably. I leaned forward, resting my elbows lightly on the table. You're smart, Nina. People will say you're clever, but others might say you're manipulative. Even malicious, someone who stirs trouble for fun. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. I'm only saying this because I care about your reputation. The corners of her mouth twitched. You? Oh, that reminds me. I interrupted again, smiling brightly. Yesterday I had chili marinated chicken feet too. Didn't finish them, so I threw away the glass bowl. Forgot to refrigerate it, the whole thing went moldy overnight. I tossed it in the trash this morning. Her face went white. Funny coincidence, I mused. You just happened to make the same dish today, right? Chili chicken feet? In a glass bowl? Tell me, cousin, is mold a family recipe of the Tan household? Laughter burst around the table, hesitant at first, then spreading like wildfire. Madame Tan's face turned green. She clutched her stomach and bolted for the bathroom, gagging violently. The room fell into dead silence. Nina stood frozen, color drained from her face. So confident a moment ago. So smug and now, utterly destroyed. I watched her coolly. For 10 years, she'd bullied Annie with words and smiles. Now it was her turn to learn what real manipulation looked like. When Madame Tan finally returned to the living room, her expression was stormy. Her face was pale, her eyes furious. She clearly intended to hold Nina accountable. But Nina, ever quick on her feet, reacted instantly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small jewelry box, voice trembling just enough to sound pitiful. Auntie, please don't be upset, she said softly. I was going to give you a surprise gift earlier, but Chloe interrupted me. About that chicken feet dish, please don't take it seriously. It really was something I made at home. I must have just mixed up the bowls. She opened the box, revealing a pair of pearl earrings gleaming under the chandelier light. The adult's eyes softened immediately. Madame Tan hesitated, glancing at the gift, her anger fading beneath the comforting weight of vanity. She muttered something about not making a scene, then put the earrings on with shaky hands. All right, enough drama, she said coldly. Let's drop this. I smiled faintly. Typical. For people like her, dignity always outweighed truth. When faced with embarrassment, she'd rather bury it under jewelry. But I wasn't done yet. She turned toward me suddenly, her tone clipped but falsely polite. Chloe, you didn't bring a gift for me, did you? Ah, there it was. The classic emotional trap, the same one I'd seen countless times before. For people like Madame Tan, control was a reflex. She believed everyone should orbit around her moods, even the daughter she'd only just reclaimed. If I said no, she'd sigh dramatically, accuse me of being ungrateful, and let the relatives tear me apart. If I said yes but had nothing to show, she'd smile sweetly and humiliate me anyway. Before I could speak, Nina jumped in cheerfully, the perfect accomplice. Of course she brought something, Auntie. I even reminded her earlier that today was your birthday. She hadn't, of course, but she said it loud enough for everyone to hear, crafting a trap so obvious it was almost pathetic. I stood up slowly, smiling. Of course I brought a gift, I said. I'll go get it right now. The room went quiet. Every pair of eyes followed me as I walked toward the stairs. Halfway up, I turned back casually. I bought an essential oil diffuser, I said. A limited edition design. I left it in my room upstairs. I thought it'd help you sleep better. Teachers stay up late. Grading papers, right, Mom? At the mention of diffuser, Nina's smile froze. Her eyes widened. Her body stiffened, the color draining from her face. Too late. I walked to the glass doors leading to the garden and stopped. Then, in a trembling voice loud enough for everyone to hear, I gasped, Who threw my diffuser out here? Everyone turned in shock. I knelt down, picking up the shattered glass pieces, my fingers trembling. I didn't do anything wrong, I said softly, voice breaking. I just came home. I didn't fight, didn't argue, so why would someone treat me like this? Gasps rippled through the relatives. Nina's face went white. Stop pretending, she shouted suddenly. You threw my luggage out first. I looked up at her slowly, tears glinting at the corner of my eyes. Oh, really? I asked quietly. Then why was your luggage in my room? Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I clutched the broken diffuser to my chest, my voice trembling just enough to sound raw. You just wanted to teach me a lesson, right? To remind me that in this house, only you get to decide things. That I'm just a guest, even though I'm their real daughter. I paused, letting the silence sink in. And Annie, too, I added softly. The girl who's lived in my place all these years, she's just an outsider too, isn't she? The living room fell into complete stillness. I lifted my gaze, meeting each face at the table. Not one of you said anything when she moved her luggage into my room, I said, my voice cold now. You all saw it. You all knew, but you stayed quiet waiting to see how I'd react. Am I wrong? The relatives shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Mr. Tan's face darkened, his brows furrowed deeply. Nina, he said sharply, did you really take Chloe's room? Nina lowered her head, her voice trembling. I just thought she might not be used to sleeping upstairs. Ridiculous, he snapped. His palm slammed the table, the sound echoing through the hall. So you thought stealing her room was helping her? The younger cousins all froze. The mighty Tan family, usually so self-righteous now, looked like children caught lying. I stood quietly, watching the performance unfold. It was almost admirable how quickly they shifted masks, pretending to be righteous once their image was threatened. Mr. Tan sighed heavily, shaking his head as though deeply disappointed in everyone but himself. Chloe, when we invited you home, we meant well, he said solemnly. We didn't know things had gone this far. Ah, yes, the perfect script of the noble patriarch. Punish without taking responsibility. Appear just strict enough to look fair, yet never admit fault. I almost laughed. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a prop to complete their family portrait. Nina suddenly raised her voice again, desperate. That diffuser was old. How could that be a birthday gift for Auntie? I turned slowly, my smile icy. Oh, so you did know it was mine? I said softly. How interesting you just confirmed it yourself. Her face went pale again. I tilted my head slightly, my tone still calm but laced with steel. Maybe you were just trying to help me upgrade, right? Throw it away early, save me the trouble later? I let the sarcasm linger, then added quietly. You're right about one thing, though. I can't compete with you. You're much better at picking gifts that cost nothing, and at cooking with spoiled ingredients you stole from someone else's kitchen. The silence that followed was absolute. Nina's eyes widened in disbelief. Madame Tan's face twisted in fury, but this time, not at me. The mask of the perfect family finally cracked. Aunt Susan jumped up to defend her daughter, her voice tight and trembling. Nina just made a mistake. She didn't mean any harm. After all, you, Chloe, used to be my student back in primary school. You should show some respect to your elders. I froze for half a second. So that was it. Annie and Nina had studied in the same class, and their homeroom teacher had been none other than Madame Tan, the woman who'd spent years preaching fairness while humiliating her own daughter in front of everyone. The pieces were falling into place. As the room buzzed with whispers, a sharp chime sounded from the front door. The sharp chime of the doorbell cut through the tense silence. Everyone turned their heads at once. One of the aunts hurried to the door, eager for distraction. A moment later, her surprised voice echoed through the hall. Oh my! You're from Peking University, aren't you? Before the visitors could even answer, she was already shouting excitedly back into the living room. Nina! Nina, dear! People from Peking University came to see you. The room instantly burst into chaos. That's amazing. I knew she'd done well. Such a talented girl, Peking University came personally to recruit her. Smiles bloomed on every face. All traces of embarrassment from earlier vanished in seconds, replaced by pride and flattery. Nina, whose face had only just regained some color, stood frozen for a moment, then straightened her posture, pretending to be modest but glowing with satisfaction. She took a deep breath, smoothed her dress, and walked gracefully toward the door like a movie star heading for her spotlight. The relatives followed her with shining eyes. Oh, our Nina is incredible. See? Even the university's representatives came to congratulate her. With a brain like hers, she'll be a leader one day. Even Mr. and Mrs. Tan looked at each other, their pride returning in full force. At the door stood a small group of young people in Peking University uniforms, holding folders. Their demeanor was calm and formal, but before they could speak, Aunt Susan clapped her hands and exclaimed, "You've come to invite Nina Tan, haven't you? She's right here." The students exchanged awkward glances. "Yes, hello," one of them began politely. "We're actually here to—" "Oh, no need to explain," Mr. Tan interrupted, laughing heartily as he walked forward. "We already understand. Peking University must be thrilled to have such a talented young woman. You're here to make sure she chooses your school, right?" The lead student hesitated. Actually," Mr. Tan kept talking, his chest puffed up with pride. "Ha ha! No need to convince us. Nina's heart has always belonged to Peking University. You have no competition here, young people." Behind him, Nina's face glowed with feigned humility, her voice trembling like an actress receiving an award. "Uncle, Auntie, it's all thanks to your teaching. I'll never forget your kindness." The room erupted in applause. Everyone was smiling, everyone except the visitors. Finally, the lead student cleared her throat, her expression composed but firm. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said gently. "We're not from the admissions department. We're here looking for someone." A flicker of confusion crossed the room. Mrs. Tan blinked. "Looking? For someone?" "Yes," the student replied calmly. "We're here to meet the president of the Peking University Student Union." The room went utterly silent. The air froze. The only sound left was the faint hum of the chandelier. Mr. Tan frowned slightly. The president?" "Yes." The student smiled politely. "She's one of us. We were told she lives here." For several seconds, no one spoke. The proud smiles faded into blank stares. Then the student's eyes swept across the room slowly, deliberately before stopping on me. Her face lit up with relief. "President," she said warmly. "We've been looking everywhere for you. The car's waiting at the gate." The silence shattered. Every head turned toward me. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. All the fake smiles, the flattery, the arrogance vanished in an instant. The room that had been buzzing with laughter minutes ago was now as still as a photograph. I adjusted my sleeve calmly, rose from my seat, and nodded. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll be right there." As I walked past the stunned faces, Nina's mouth hung open, her eyes wide in disbelief. Mrs. Tan grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. "Chloe, since when? When did you enroll in Peking University? Why didn't you tell us?" Her tone wasn't joyful, it was sharp, almost accusing, like my success had somehow betrayed her expectations. I smiled faintly. "I did tell you," I said. "When Nina asked about my score, remember? You all laughed, said I was dreaming." Nina's lips trembled. Her face had turned ghostly white. A single hour ago, she'd mocked me for claiming a score of 726. Now, the truth hit her like a falling chandelier. Mr. Tan's voice cracked. "But why didn't you tell us sooner? When we called to invite you home, why hide it?" I looked at him, my tone steady and cold. "Because you never asked. You assumed a girl raised in the countryside couldn't possibly have achieved more than your precious niece. Why ruin your own fantasy?" Mrs. Tan flinched, color flooding and draining from her face in quick succession. I went on quietly, my words smooth as glass. "You lecture everyone about morality and education, but the moment I arrived, You called me foolish, accused me of dating thugs, told me to listen to my elders. You only care about appearances, never about truth. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I gave her a small, courteous smile. Don't worry, Mom. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to waste money preparing another fancy celebration. After all, you didn't even mention it was your birthday today, probably afraid I'd spend too much, right? Her expression froze, the muscles in her face twitching slightly. For the first time, she had no words, only the stunned realization that I could see straight through her. I turned to Nina, who stood trembling beside her mother, eyes glassy and unfocused. It's a good thing you reminded me about Mom's birthday, I said lightly. Otherwise, my diffuser might never have been broken. Nina's head snapped up. Chloe, you... Before she could finish, a calm male voice sounded from the doorway. Is there a problem here? Everyone turned. Leonard Foe stood at the threshold, tall and composed, his black hair slightly tousled, eyes cold and sharp. He walked straight to my side, his presence commanding instant silence. I looked at him, amused. So, Leonard, this is your childhood sweetheart? Nina immediately lowered her voice, switching to her most fragile tone. Leonard, I don't know why Chloe hates me so much. I never meant to upset her. He cut her off smoothly. If you don't know, maybe think about it, he said, his tone even but cutting. When you don't understand something, do you always run around blaming others? Nina's lips trembled. You've changed. You used to... He raised an eyebrow. Used to what? Be polite to you? I'm polite to everyone. That doesn't mean I ever liked you. The room fell into stunned silence again. I chuckled softly under my breath. Relax, I murmured. You'll get used to it. Nina's face flushed crimson with humiliation. Behind her, the relative sat frozen, unsure whether to look at me, at her, or at the floor. As for me, I simply straightened my posture, looked back at the group of students still waiting at the door, and said lightly, Let's go. They nodded in unison. I walked out calmly, the sound of my heels echoing against the marble floor. Behind me, the mighty Tan family, so full of vanity, control, and pretense, finally fell silent.